Tuesday, November 18th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Climate Week Day 2, folks, live from the Delta Hotel. We're here for the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor's 85th Constitutional Convention. Here's a question we're asking. How does a province plan for a just transition? We're going to answer that question, and we're going to dig into another couple of climate bibs and bobs. Plus, there are loads of union points, labor points to go over, and you're going to meet a bunch of people. And one of these people you've met before, Jessica McCormick, the president of the Federation of Labor. How you doing?
I'm good.
You're all caffeinated?
I'm almost all caffeinated.
I'm overly caffeinated from the coffee. So
I need a little bit more.
Yeah. So if you even from me to you, we even out somewhere in between. How? Like, give us the overall of what's happening here.
So we have nearly 300 union activists from across the province here with us in St. John's this week. We're at our constitutional convention, and that's where we set our agenda for the labor movement in Newfoundland and Labrador for the next 3 years. So we come together, debate resolutions, hear from guest speakers, talk about union education, do workshops, learn from each other, and I think most important for me and a lot of people in the room this week is building relationships with other workers, not just from their own workplace, from other parts of the province, so that we can collectively build the strength and power that we need to take on employers and take on governments. We've got a new provincial government and a lot of work to do over the next 3 years.
So you're what I call my anchor guest. You're going to be making appearances throughout the 55 minutes of this show. We're going to meet some folks who are union members from different parts of the province who are working different jobs. We're going to hear from just what life is like for them. Before we go to our first guest, me and you have talked about this before, just transition. Well, when you think about that, what do you think about?
So I think about it in the context of Newfoundland and Labrador. You know, we've seen a lot of transformations of our economy over the years, right? You know, people will think about the cod moratorium, for example, in the 90s, what that meant for workers in that industry. But I see our economy changing, industries changing now, and the need for us to be prepared for those changes. So when I think about a just transition, I think about taking care of people, and that's what the Federation of Labor has always been about. And so in the context of climate change, we've been talking more and more over the past few years about how do we get our workers ready for that transition? How do we ensure we have the right safeguards in place to support people through to retirement? How do we make sure that any new jobs that are created in renewable industries are good jobs with good union wages and benefits? And so that's what I think about when I think about a just transition. I don't think it's a scary topic. It's actually something that came from the labor movement, right? It has roots in organized labor. And so I like to talk about that history and how workers, generations before us, have been fighting for those basic standards and that job security for workers in any industry, whether it's in the fishery or maybe in the oil and gas industry.
All right, and there's lots more we're going to dig into. President McCormick, thank you for kicking off the show.
Thank you.
We're going to bring an economist into this discussion who's not from here. Yesterday evening, was it, sir? Mr. Stanford, Jim Stanford is here. How
I got here yesterday. Yes, that's right, Adam. From Vancouver, the other side of the country. There we go.
The flight over was okay?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and the weather beautiful here today, and the people are great. So.
Yeah, the sun's out for a bit. So, like I said, economist, you're also director of the Center for Future Work.
Yes.
Which, when we talk about a just transition, future work is a big part of that discussion. I mean, it is the discussion. What are you here to talk about today when it comes to just being here with the union and also the just transition?
I'll be presenting after lunch on some research in progress that our center has been doing in partnership with the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor about transition, economic transitions, why they're going to happen, how they can happen, how we can prepare for them, and make sure that no one's left out in the cold as the economy changes. That's partly about climate, of course, and climate policy, but there's all kinds of other things happening in terms of technology and the future of work and how our economy is made up. And getting ready for all of those transitions, I think, is an important thing, and the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor has really put a lot of priority on it.
So what happens if we don't get it right?
Well, we've got a lot of experience, unfortunately, in this province of how transitions can occur that you didn't get right. The cod fishery collapse, of course, in the early 90s is still a painful memory for most people in the province, and that is something we should learn from. You know, there's a transition that happened suddenly. We weren't prepared for it. And as a result, it was much more devastating. The future transitions, such as the transition away from fossil fuel production, which we know is going to happen, but it can happen over a gradual period of time. We're looking at a 25-year period rather than a 2-year period. That makes it a lot less catastrophic. And because we know it's happening, we know that the world is shifting away from fossil fuels, we can put in place plans and give people notice and get people ready for it, and use things like retirement, for example. Most fossil fuel workers are going to retire before the use of fossil fuels is fully phased out. So there's a way to do it, in terms of getting people ready for the next stage of their life, but not in a way that leaves them out of work. So
oftentimes I hear here when you talk to folks, it doesn't matter if it was the previous government under the Liberals or the current one, the language is about, well, as long as oil is needed, it should come from Newfoundland and Labrador. But how do we frame looking at demand globally with this just transition for what the oil industry means now for the province, or GDP and wages, compared to what things could mean as you transition away from it, from the plateau onward, of what's expected to happen?
Yeah, part of the issue, Adam, is certainly world demand. Right this week, everyone's meeting in Brazil at the environmental conference, and they're mapping out a roadmap for how does the world economy get to a place where we're basically not using fossil fuels in most uses anymore, and that's important for the climate. But again, it's not just the climate. There's technology and economic forces at work here as well. So you've seen enormous improvements in the cost efficiency of different renewable energy systems, so that on a full cycle basis it's cheaper to generate electricity from renewable energy than from fossil fuels. On a full cycle basis it's cheaper to drive an electric vehicle than a traditional internal combustion vehicle. So it's not just about climate policy. There's all kinds of deeper economic forces happening. Then we also have to look at the supply side of it. I think the most pressing force for transition away from fossil fuels in Newfoundland and Labrador is going to be resource depletion. Not so much that, somebody made a policy and flicked a switch and said we're not going to use that anymore, but rather that the oil that we know is economically recoverable ran out. So most of the oil that we know is economically recoverable has already been produced in Newfoundland and Labrador. Folks have got ideas of other resources they could bring on stream, but there's so much uncertainty around the prices and the economics of it all. This is why it makes a lot of sense to plan for a transition, even if you're looking beyond just the immediate debates of climate policy.
So economically recoverable. We've got the easy oil,
yes,
the accessible oil we have, that was cheaper to get.
Yep.
Anything that costs more, depending on the price of oil companies may move away and not want to even explore for that because the price point on it is not worth their time. Is this part of it? Or
not worth their time, and mostly not worth their money. So
yeah,
look at what's happened to oil prices now. Over the last few years, they've declined quite a bit. They're around $60 US a barrel right now, which probably does not justify additional offshore developments, certainly not the deep water developments that people are thinking of in Bay du Nord and some of the other more remote locations. So the economic uncertainty, frankly, is the more imminent challenge, I think, facing the provincial oil and gas industry. We used to have a gas industry in Nova Scotia, for example. They produced it all, and it's gone. So that, in a way, is a canary in the coal mine for Newfoundland and Labrador to think about what happens next. This resource played an important role, no doubt about it, in the provincial economy for a certain period of time, but it isn't going to last forever on the supply side, and it isn't going to be wanted forever on the demand side. So it makes a lot of sense to look around this province with all of its resources and all of its people and say, what else are we going to be doing in the future? And luckily, there's a lot of other things this province can be doing in the future.
So then what is the jobs outlook for a transition, for looking for these, whether you call them green jobs or whatever the future of jobs is away from an oil and gas industry? Like if I'm an oil and gas worker today,
yes,
and I'm not looking at retirement, what's my future look like 20 years from now when I'm still working?
Luckily, Adam, most oil and gas workers will be able to retire by the time the oil runs out and stops being used. So the research that we did said about 80% or more of existing oil workers in Newfoundland and Labrador are going to reach retirement age before 2050, which is when the forecasts suggest most of the oil use is going to disappear. So the retirement, finish your career and retire, is the best way to transition, believe me.
Yeah.
But for the community as a whole, we got to have a plan for the other industries and the other investments and the other jobs that are going to be created. Some of that will be in the whole area of the energy transition on the new side, what's growing. So renewable energy, Newfoundland and Labrador, of course, has huge potential for further hydroelectric development that's being discussed, offshore or onshore wind development. The infrastructure that goes with it, like transmission lines or building wind towers, hundreds of jobs in that area. Industries that use clean energy can be another part of the equation. So if you can produce non-emitting energy, you've suddenly got a competitive advantage these days for everything from data centers to green steel manufacturing. Those are things that could play a role. Even energy conservation. There could be thousands of jobs in retrofitting industrial and commercial buildings so that they use less energy. That's part of the equation going forward as well.
I just had a conversation yesterday about the potential for solar panels on houses, right, and also buildings and everything else. So I mean, like, to your point,
yeah.
and also to President McCormick's point earlier, with the COD moratoria or the moratorium here in this province that hit everyone, massive layoffs, everything else. This is something that we can plan for because we know we're in the process.
We know it's happening. It's going to happen over a long period of time. It isn't going to happen tomorrow. 25 years until 2050. And it's one where there's lots of other things that can be built at the same time. Like I mentioned earlier, Adam, the renewable energy side of the equation, and that's very positive. But remember, Newfoundland's got a huge economy that depends on all kinds of industries, whether it's not just fossil fuel industry, that's maybe 1.5% of our total employment. The renewable energy industry will probably create more jobs on a net basis just because there's more labor content required for that type of work than there is in the offshore oil industry. Offshore oil has a lot of capital, not that many workers. But there's 98% of the rest of the economy in everything from construction to non-fossil mining to transportation to manufacturing to services. These are places that are actually going to do, I think, most of the heavy lifting in future job creation. And as long as the overall economy is growing and the population in Newfoundland and Labrador is growing again, that helps a lot. We're going to see jobs in all kinds of sectors. So it's not just a question of taking an oil worker and putting them in a new role, installing a windmill. There's all kinds of connections and options as the economy evolves, so long as we're investing and growing and creating jobs as we go.
I've got you all warmed up now for after lunch for your presentation. So
hopefully the audience will be awake, they'll have lunch in their belly, and they'll be ready to hear about this transition.
Mr. Jim Stanford, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Adam. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Cheers. All right, I'll bring Jessica McCormick back into it. Any thoughts from what you're hearing from Jim there?
Yeah, I mean, Jim's report and the work that we've been doing with him is so important because, we've been having these conversations for a while, and the one thing that we hear from workers when we go out talking to them, and we've been, undertaking this project over the past year of having worker-to-worker conversations. Daniel Smith in our office has been going out and talking to people in all different types of industries, and the one thing that always comes up is, well, what do these jobs look like? Where would I go? Where would somebody go? So I think narrowing in on some of those questions that people have been asking and offering a little bit of context for that, offering some possibilities of what industries could provide good jobs for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. I think that's really kind of helping us to further those conversations in something that, grounding it in something that is realistic, because I think a lot of the time we're kind of talking at a higher level, maybe not with the details that people need to feel the sense of security as they see our economy transitioning. So that's been really valuable, I think, and just understanding some of the numbers behind it, how many people are working in the industry, and what the potential is in some of those renewable industries, whether it's hydroelectric, solar panels, like you said, or otherwise.
One of the things I find interesting from when I was preparing for the show today, knowing, talking to Mr. Stanford, talking to yourself, so the just transition side, but I was also looking back at, I actually found this by accident in my emails. I forgot about it, but it came up from July. You put out a thing on workplace heat stress campaign. So Climate Week on the show, and we're going to be going into further union discussion points after this, but you've got the big broad, what's the future of work like, and this just transition. But also it's like, hey, summers are hotter, more humid than ever before. This is only going to increase. And on the labor side of things, it's like we need to look at heat and workers.
Yeah, I mean, the big question is, what does the future of work look like? Not just for a group of workers in one industry, but for all workers in a changing climate. And that was where the heat stress campaign came from, is understanding that a lot of people from Newfoundland and Labrador were not built for the kind of heat that we're experiencing now in summers. And if you're working outdoors, but also in the manufacturing setting, those rising temperatures can have an impact on your occupational health and safety. And so that's, why we went out and talked to workers about their rights in the workplace, but it's also fed into a campaign around making sure we have the right occupational health and safety regulations to protect people in extreme temperatures. And what we heard through those conversations is that we can't just talk about heat, we have to talk about colder climates and, linesmen and other folks who are out, climbing up on a pole in the really windy conditions. Exactly. And then thinking about the extreme weather, hurricanes, flooding, whether we have the public infrastructure that we need to safeguard our communities, but then the people like water bomber pilots, forestry workers, all the folks who responded to the wildfires over the past summer, how is the changing climate impacting them in their workplace? Do they have the right safety equipment? And then on the other side of it, do we have the right workers' compensation coverage to help support those people should they face a workplace injury as a result of those kinds of conditions? So all of these questions come up. It's not just about one group of workers, it's about all of us because we're all impacted by a changing climate, and that's why we're talking about it more broadly as the future of work. And we're going to get into all those different discussions over the course of the rest of our convention this week.
New provincial government.
Yeah.
How's the conversation going with the new administration?
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting with Premier Wakeham actually in the next week or so, I believe, and sitting down with him to talk about some of the priorities that are coming out of our convention. Of course, none of it should come as a big surprise to him because we've long been talking about, what are the kinds of conditions that workers need in Newfoundland and Labrador to thrive in terms of good jobs and good wages, occupational health and safety, like I've said, and the environment that we have for organizing new members. We want to grow our labor movement, and we know the best way to build a healthy, strong, resilient economy in Newfoundland and Labrador is by ensuring more people have a union card in their pocket. And so unfortunately it's more difficult to organize a union in this province, and that's one of the top priorities of our federation, is making sure we have the labor laws in place that make it easier for people to bring a democratic voice to their workplace, that we have anti-scab legislation like we have at the federal level, and that we're making investments in workers in a variety of sectors to respond to tariffs and a trade war without leaving anybody behind. We're going into public sector bargaining in the coming year, so there is going to be a lot on the go for workers in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, so the Premier is going to be seeing your name a few times.
I think you will, yes.
I know you've talked about this in the news, but because we're here and we're talking, the budget, federal budget just passed yesterday, cuts to the public sector, just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we brought our delegates from our convention to Tom Osborne's office yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I heard that in the
and
news.
held a rally outside, and we represent a number of federal public service workers. There are thousands of them in Newfoundland and Labrador. 40,000 jobs over the next 3 years is going to have a significant impact, not just on the people working in those positions, but on the delivery of very important public services that all of us rely on.
What were your thoughts on the fact you've got a Liberal MP talking about how the public service grew too big and too fast, but all under a Liberal government?
Yeah, I mean that's the irony there, and not just a Liberal MP, but this person was a Liberal member of the House of Assembly provincially. I mean, he knows very well what the issues are facing working people in this province, in his neck of the woods. So very disappointing to hear that response from Tom Osborne. He's got a position right now as a secretary or parliamentary secretary to the President of the Treasury Board, where he has some real impact on what can happen to working people. When I think about the folks in the federal public service in this province, like those are good jobs. They should have job security, and it's the wrong direction. This is not what we voted for in the last federal election. People voted for building a stronger economy. They didn't vote for austerity, and that's what we're getting. So
then what do you think this does for the cost of living discussion that's ongoing, and of any political stripe, right? Everyone's talking about cost of living these days.
Yeah. I spoke about this in my opening remarks to our convention yesterday, that when people think about affordability, we think about the cost of goods, but we also have to think about what people are earning, right? What's in that paycheck that you take home at the end of the day? Do you have enough not just to pay for the basics, but to be able to live a good life, a comfortable, secure life? And that's, I think, how we need to reframe the affordability discussion. If you're worried about, the possibility of being laid off from your job, perhaps losing your benefits, not having that security, that really, that affordability crisis is really amplified for you. That uncertainty is really amplified. And so, we're looking to the federal government to make investments in good jobs, and that's what they said they would do during their election campaign. And I think that there's still time to reverse some of these decisions that they've made in this budget, and I know that workers across the province are going to be putting a lot of pressure on Tom Osborne and Joanne Thompson and others in the next few weeks.
Jessica McCormick, you're my anchor guest. I'll be talking to you again shortly. We're going to go to a song first, folks, and then we're going to meet some people with the Federation of Labor for Newfoundland and Labrador, right? Find out about their jobs, their thoughts on their jobs, and a little bit on who they are. But I will toss to a labor-related song, I'll say, Sherman Downey and Shift Work. I'm Adam Walsh. You are listening to The Signal. We're live from the Delta Hotel at the Federation of Labor's convention, the 85th convention, and we've been, well, this is part of Climate Week, so we had some climate discussion on a just transition, and also some climate bits when it comes to labor, the future of work for everyone. And now we're going to meet folks who are all union workers in different jobs, and we're going to just ask them about who they are, what their jobs are, and we'll have a bit of a discussion that way on important issues that are being talked about here at the Delta. So, and all as well, President Jessica McCormick is here for the rest of the hour as well. On the youth side, which is where we'll go with this, we've got Taylor Smith. How you doing? You're a young workers rep.
I am Young Workers Rep, and I also sit on the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor Gender Equity Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? Which one do you want to talk about first?
I will talk about gender equity.
Okay. Yeah. So, when you're on the Gender Equity Committee,
Yep.
What's the conversation like?
So we are a group of diverse union affiliate members, and what we look at is workplace challenges and issues that face women and gender diverse individuals. Yeah. And that's the focus of our work.
So what are some of the, I've got stuff in mind, but what are some of the, what are some of the challenges in today's work environment that you folks are talking about?
Yeah, so there's a bunch.
Yeah.
Childcare accessibility, affordability. Today, actually, we launched a new campaign about an issue that faces women and gender diverse workers, and that's menstrual equity. Yeah. And we launched our campaign, Menstrual Products for All, today.
Well, I'm going to make a sound effect here. Can you tell me what's on the card?
Yeah, so Menstrual Products for All, what we did was we made a campaign. We created postcards. They are addressed to the Premier's office, and essentially our demand is that the provincial government make menstrual products freely accessible in all workplaces.
So we have these in my workplace, but like you just said, you're lobbying for
for all workplaces.
For all
so
workplaces.
Right now there is legislation from a federal lens, but having this available. But in terms of across the province, it's not a one clear-cut issue, and we want to make sure that it's available in every workplace so that every worker can access.
And this is going to be like the dumbest question, but why is that so important?
It's a very important issue. It affects a variety of different people, not just workers, but trans, gender diverse. It affects workers in a bunch of different sectors, young workers, new hires, precarious jobs. It's not one size fits all, and it's something with a lot of stigma attached to it. And we want to help combat that and make it, part of the norm.
It's 2025 still, just checking the year. Why is this still why is it that this hasn't been changed already, do you think?
That's a good question.
I mean, oftentimes, I'm sure there's sexism.
It's unfortunate. I mean, there's a lot of things that are changing right now, but I just think there's so much stigma attached to it that this is something, it's a private matter, it's something that doesn't necessarily affect everybody. Yeah. People get uncomfortable when we talk about it. We had a great conversation over breakfast this morning about it. And it's just a matter of taking these issues that have always been kept on a private level and bringing them to the forefront and saying it's normal, it's okay, and we need to talk about these things.
So then, if this gets brought in, what's the equity side of it for having these things available for folks?
So it would take down a lot of barriers. Yeah. So for example, young workers, new hires, precarious jobs, different areas, there's a financial barrier associated with it.
And we're in a cost of living crisis.
Absolutely. Totally. Accessibility, you look at rural and remote areas, it's not as easy to get these items. Mm-hmm. So that would also create, an accessibility feat there. It would basically level the playing field, and all workers' issues would be level.
Yeah, well, exactly. So you know that when you're going to work, right, this is something, one thing that is really, really important, but that you don't have to worry about, and that you don't have to think about how you're going to spend money on it, or that, like you said, if you're going to if you're working in an isolated spot,
and it's basic hygiene.
There's no shopping stores or Drug Mart or whatever next to you.
Yes, and it's a basic hygiene need. I mean, we supply toilet paper, we supply soap. Why is this treated any differently?
For basic hygiene. Okay. What other points have you been talking about then? What other points have you been talking about? Just like so around gender equity and
Yeah,
the workplace?
so that was the
That's
focus
that's
of our
big
most
one.
recent
Yeah.
campaign. We launched that this morning. We've been doing drives for products that we distributed to the school systems, such as like, soap, toilet paper, like those types of things, just to make sure that we have that available in our school systems, because a lot of students are facing issues as well. It's not just the workplace that we focus on, but we also translate into our school systems as
So
well.
what have you been hearing from the school system around that?
There's a
or students?
huge need on our student populations, and a lot of it comes down to accessibility and financial barriers, like I had mentioned. And we are hearing from schools that there are specific items that they are in need of. And so what we did as a committee, we held drives, and as of this morning, we also are getting people donating monetary funds so that we can go out, get these products, put them into the school systems, and make it easier for students to access the basic needs.
Do you think we should be in a place where that's necessary in today's world for the school systems to have to do those drives, put those products in?
It's a shortfall on the government, really. It shouldn't fall on volunteers. It shouldn't fall on unions. This is something that needs to be widespread. It's creating a barrier, and we need to break that down.
And what are the discussion around the youth workers side of things?
So we had an election actually at this convention. So I was elected as of yesterday for the.
So you got elected yesterday. Then they're like, can you do a CBC interview? I mean, that is
yesterday for the Young Workers Vice President
congratulations.
position. Thank you very much. And we're focusing on bringing young voices to the table. Right now, it's trying to get our voices where decisions are being made, making that visibility clear. We face our own unique challenges. Student loans, cost of living is astronomical right now. We have family commitments. We have a unique array of challenges that we face right now as young workers, and it's just trying to get that to the forefront.
Excellent. Did I miss anything? Is that everything you wanted to talk about?
I think that's good.
I think that was a great list. So thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank
by the
you very
way.
much.
I'll bring Jessica McCormick in for this. So President McCormick, just a couple different discussions there, right? The new menstrual products campaign, also just the reality for young workers coming into the workforce and everything. Just any thoughts stand out for you?
Yeah, well, and it's been a running joke during the convention that Taylor and I look a whole lot alike. So I know there's people listening on the radio. You haven't had a chance to actually see us next to each
when
other.
I wasn't focusing, and when she first came up earlier, I was like, oh wait, oh no,
Yeah,
person.
my doppelganger. No, I mean, Taylor raised so many great points, and I just wanted to highlight, that our Gender Equity Committee does fantastic work on behalf of workers around the province, but the donations that they've been making, there's a lot of, folks in rural Newfoundland and Labrador. A lot happens in and around, St. John's, but in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, getting access to an array of, hygiene products that you might need is so important. And I know in schools, they're providing those basic needs to students and to teachers who are working there, but when you go home at the end of the day, if you're a family that's struggling to make ends meet, buying those extras is really, difficult. And so we've been trying to make that a little bit easier for folks, especially in rural Newfoundland and Labrador. And just on the young worker side of things, Adam, I was elected at one of these conventions 3 years ago, and I was a young worker at that time. And so for me, in the labor movement and in lots of organizations, we want to see young people step up and take on leadership roles like Taylor is doing within our organization, because it's important for people to see leadership reflective of the people that we represent or the people that we want to bring into the movement.
Yeah.
Younger workers get more involved so that they can carry the mantle forward and continue to fight for the things that Taylor raised, like our menstrual products campaign and whatever else people are dealing with in the workplace.
All right, thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank
We're
you.
going to move on to our next guest. So, we had a youth conversation there on the Signal. We talked about gender equity, the menstrual products campaign that is ongoing. Now, let's focus in on Labrador West. And Mike, you're a steelworker, right?
I am a steelworker,
Mike,
yes.
Mike Furlong. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm Mike Furlong. I'm the president of Local 5795. I represent the main bargaining unit at IOC. I also sit on the Federation of Labour as the vice affiliate representing all steelworkers within the province.
What's it like working in Lab West these days?
It can be stressful at times. I mean, the biggest thing right now for Lab West, I represent bulk of my membership, or right through the province, are miners, and that's what Lab West is. We do best there. So right now we got a couple hurdles really. challenges, I guess, that we need to overcome if we really want to unlock the full potential of the mining industry in Labrador West. So 3 of these issues, I mean, they're not really new issues, but we haven't solved them yet. So the 3 big issues we're facing in our region, first of all, is electrical crunch. It's a huge one. We've been advocating for more power. We know there's things in the work. But it's unfortunate we never had the foresight many years ago to get ahead of this. This is the problem. The iron ore industry, like all mining industries, is very cyclic. So us as a province, we had to be proactive, and we still need to be proactive. Even if we do see another downturn, we need to get the power lines there, ready and established for the next boom in the industry.
Yeah, we know the demand for, yes, it's cyclical and there's ups and downs, and oftentimes it depends on what China's doing and their economy and this and that, the other thing. But as we continue to build, as we look at this just transition that's going on, the need for iron ore, you talked about planning for the next boom or the next upswing. Why is this, again, like I'm going to be asking like dumb questions. So the whole show for each individual person, why is extra electricity so important?
Well, the bottom line is mining in our area is very energy intensive. We are blessed, and what puts us and sets us apart from a lot of the world, which makes us very viable, is the fact that we have access to electricity. A lot of mines in the world are running their heavy machinery, their shovels on diesel. We run a number of them. Right now we have a 255 megawatt block. And we could potentially burn up another 1,000 megawatts if we're given there. We have opportunities. We had some trial runs, say, for converting our blast furnaces to arc furnaces, which requires copious amounts of electricity and hydrogen. But right now, I mean, they're all just trial phases, and everything's just potential. Rio Tinto, in particular, who I represent, is been flirting with the green steel industry. And Labrador, in particular, we should be at the forefront of that. We have lots of water. We have the iron ore that's required. If we had the electrical, that puts us in a good position for that next phase.
So then, if we talk about the potential for or the need for more electricity, is this then that conversation of that Churchill Falls, Gull Island type conversation for Lion? Like, what is that conversation? And not to go into the politics of it, but just to talk about just the need of where it could be coming from.
Well, yeah, obviously it's going to come from our own backyard. So we need to really support and get behind. I know this is going to be one of those things that's in the limelight now with the MOU, with Quebec and everything. And like I said, not to wade into politics, but if we are to bolster and strengthen a very dependable industry within this province, Labrador West needs that electricity. That's it.
What are the other union concerns or issues or thoughts from the Lab West Lands point of view?
The other ones, and these ones are still within the growth things. I mean, the biggest thing for us is we want to grow and we need to grow. So then the other biggest obstacle that we're facing, and it is a crisis for us. We cannot grow without the next step, is housing. The development in housing is not matching the speed of the growth of the industries. And our biggest fear in this one is ultimately we're a community, a very strong, close-knit community, and we've seen what happens when we do not grow at an acceptable pace. We have a sister community next door in Fermont, and that one, they have accepted fly in and fly out about 15 years ago, and the community's being gutted. It's now just essentially becoming a camp. I mean, a lot of the children that they used to have viable sports programs there, they're now moving over to Labrador West, and we're glad to take them. But the cautionary tale that comes from the Metalos in Fermont is you have to grow. If not, you're going to lose your community, and we're just going to be a camp. And I know there's some people I know would advocate for us to be a camp to support, work in regions of Newfoundland and Labrador. But the reality is, we are a community, we want to be a community, and there's never no guarantee that fly in, fly out work will reside in Newfoundland and Labrador. We see a lot of work outsourced to globally. We're a global company, and we have it from everywhere. So I guess the other one, part of the growth, and this not necessarily is going to hinder the growth, But the problem is we can't grow safely without more advocacy for dust. Right now, we're behind on our dust study, which was supposed to be conducted every 10 years. We've now gone outside of this, and this is supposed to be a joint venture between the unions, the mines, the community, and the government, looking at what is one of our largest health issues. In my mine site, unfortunately, we've had a number of fatalities over the years. Mining is a dangerous industry. But half of those fatalities are coming from airborne-related illnesses, silicosis and asbestosis. And if we do not control the dust within our mine site and the overflow of dust that blows into the communities, we're facing a very big health crisis in the future for our communities and our children.
Why is there such a delay on it? Like, what's the...
Well, one of the biggest things I think that came out of the, just to lighten a little bit of the reason why it is, when the dust study was done, these dust studies don't happen overnight. There is a little bit of a lengthy period to it. So unfortunately, I think some people were sort of resting on their heels of when the dust study finished. That's not acceptable to us. If a dust study starts in 2025 and a 10-year interval, the next study should start in 35. Yeah. The problem is they're looking at it, the dust study took several years. So now they're looking at the end of the dust study, which will push the dust study now, and we haven't started it again. So we could end up with now a 15 to 20 year interval between this, and it's not acceptable. Those dust studies were first talked about in the 70s. We recognized the need for it, and we've had some positive changes as a community. We're not supposed to be regressing. The bottom line is we should go progressing, and I think even a 10-year cycle or intervals is probably too long. I mean, if we're going to expand the way we are, we're literally poised to put a brand new mine in Labrador. If we can get that power, we can get the housing, we're going to have the Cami project start up, which is a brand new mine, and that's going to put in the region now 5 mines. The towns of Labrador City and Wambush currently right now are surrounded 360 degrees by mining. So
like, get the dust study done, well, get the electricity in, get the dust study done, get the housing accessible, adequate, up to date for everyone, and then we can start perhaps having these, like, instead of a boomtown conversation, we can have more hometown conversations around what you folks are asking
Absolutely.
for.
We're ready to become an industrial mecca for this side of Canada. We just need support from our governments and the powers that be. We're ready. We got the right labor there in place, the skilled trades. We just need those supports, and we're ready to go.
Mike Furlong, nice to meet you, man. When do you go back home, anyways?
Tomorrow afternoon.
All right, safe trip.
All right,
nice
thanks a lot.
All right,
cheers. Take care, guys.
All right. So there you go, Steelberger from Labrador West. So we can get briefly Jessica McCormick back in. President McCormick. So lots there, from Mr. Furlong. Just again, your brief thoughts on what he had to say.
Yeah, Mike is a wealth of knowledge, and we're so lucky to have him around our table. And he spoke a little bit about occupational health and safety and the dust study, but I just want to acknowledge all of the work that all of our unions do, in particular steel workers, around the enforcement of the Westray Act, which ensures that employers are held criminally responsible when a worker dies on the job. And I want to say, today actually in a Clarenville courtroom, they're hearing testimony and victim impact statements related to the explosion that took place that killed steelworker member Sean Peddle. And the United Steelworkers have done a tremendous amount of work on this issue, and it's something that we are really prioritizing or continue to prioritize as a labor movement, is that importance of occupational health and safety prevention, but also the right resources and supports to do proper investigations, to lay charges within the right timeline when necessary. Ultimately, every worker has a right to come home safe at the end of the day, and unions take that responsibility really seriously. It's at the heart of what we do.
Thank you again. Jessica McCormick will be back. I've got healthcare on the brain. I'm Adam Walsh. This is The Signal. We're at the Federation of Labor's convention at the Delta live. As we talk about healthcare, I've got Ashley Crew and Kim Parsons. How you doing?
It's been a long time.
Anyways, we go way
back
yeah,
to
this,
high school.
This is what happens when you're in Newfoundland doing media in places like we knows each other.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a horrible introduction of you. Of just that it's only between me and you. But tell folks more for Newfoundland and Labrador about yourself.
Right. So
and what you've done since high school.
Right. So I am a registered nurse and the vice president of the Registered Nurses Union.
Excellent.
Yes. And along with that, I still hold a full-time job as the cleft and craniofacial nurse for the province.
Excellent. And give us your best introduction then.
Oh, hi. I'm a lab assistant with NL Health Services, and I am with NAPE on the board of directors as the Eastern Vice President.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so Ashley, Kim, who wants to go, like, for issues being talked about here, what are some of, like, healthcare, I've done shows, I will do future shows, it could be its own podcast, but what are some of the issues to talk about that are coming up here from a Federation of Labor perspective?
Right. So violence is a big one for us. People are waiting forever to get health care, and the frustration and the anger is coming out to our members. So it's a dangerous place to work. Yeah.
Like, I've got a picture in my head of this. I've also in the past talked to that coffee about it.
Right.
But when it comes to like examples, like what, not too specific, but just what's an example of this frustration that boils over into what is completely unacceptable?
Right. And it's not always the physical.
Yeah.
People just are berating our members about wait times and things that we have no ability to fix at the current moment with the state of things. It's just, everyone just needs to be kinder and more respectful. Your frustration should go back to the government and those that provide.
Yeah, put it in a spicy email or even an
Yeah,
old-fashioned
right? Like
letter.
that's
but,
where we
you know.
need you to send your frustration, not
And even
to the
there,
frontline workers.
keep it professional.
Keep it
when I say spicy,
professional,
I mean
but-
under a professional
Exactly.
script. I understand frustration, but why do people feel they have permission to do this?
That's a fantastic question. They don't have permission to do
Yeah.
that. You would never touch anyone who was, police officers don't get the amount of violence that we get. I don't know if it's a feminist issue. I tend to believe that it is. But it's never okay to treat people like that. We're a predominantly female profession, and it seems like it's expected that we just accept this. One of our board of directors members continues on and says, when he's a big burly man, he says, when I walk in the room, everyone calms down and nobody says anything. But when the girls are in the room, it's a very, very different.
So how does that get changed? $1 million question there.
Billion-dollar question. Yeah, I think it goes back to education and tolerance. There should be zero tolerance. And I have to give kudos to NLHS for providing an anti-violence campaign that they're currently doing. But I really want to see them put their money where their mouth is and actually follow through with conditions for people who violate these.
Thank you for that. Ashley, what are your thoughts on some issues you've been talking about, thinking about here?
Some of our biggest issues, especially in the lab, is recruitment and retention.
Yep.
We have a lot of issues around that. Our lab assistant program is only in Central. I haven't had one in St. John's in a number of years. So able to get people to go into the program and come and work with us, it has been impossible. We are very short-staffed. I believe in our eastern region right now we have 50 vacancies, which is abhorrent. We should not have that many vacancies in the lab, but we can't retain or recruit anybody because there's no program locally for them to attend. And then we also had the issue that 10 years ago, the JES, the Job Evaluation Survey, dropped the lab assistants in pay by 2 pay scales. So not only we don't have the education system supports for them to become lab assistants, to come into the lab and into the program, we're also not paying them well.
Okay, so education, better pay, also the availability to access everything you need to be trained to do your job well.
And I feel like government is trying to push us towards privatization of blood collection, unfortunately.
Right.
We're trying to get that more to the forefront because the wait times to get public blood work done in the hospitals is a number of weeks. And so people are being encouraged to go to private, but you should not have to pay for your blood work to get done. This is a public service that needs to stay a public service. And I feel like government is not stepping in because they want to encourage us to privatize blood collection. And the other part about it is that I think the public doesn't realize, because it is very easy to just go pay for your blood work to get done and have it done and not have to go and wait. I understand that, but you don't realize that that is doubly being paid because you're going and paying for the blood work to be done. They are not running that in that clinic.
No.
It is coming into the public service for us to run the tests, for our technologists to run the tests. And so it's still a backlog in our system. So it's not helping, it is making things harder, and I think government really needs to step in for that.
There's a
Yeah,
multifaceted
go ahead.
issue there too, because with the lack of people with lack of them in the system, RNs are drawing blood work.
Yeah.
So amongst their crazy workloads, they're also having to pick up where the gaps are in the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also understanding why my own blood appointment got bumped a couple times a little while ago. So anyways,
Well, we also run into the issues because where it really affects the nurses
Yeah.
is our inpatients.
Yeah.
So we routinely do not have enough lab assistants to do our inpatient blood work. So this impacts our discharges. This impacts. So we already have not enough beds in our hospitals as it is. So now it's delaying discharges, it's delaying treatment, and then it's putting more pressure on the nurses who should be working within their scope and not having to do the work within our scope. And if we had more resources, we would all be able to collectively work together and have a better healthcare system.
I will say, when I did get my blood done, everyone was lovely. Both doctors.
They are always very lovely.
Always lovely.
There's just not enough of them.
Not enough.
Just to underscore
Yeah.
the points of the workers
We
in
need to be
Newfoundland and
cloned.
Labrador. Ashley, Kim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you again, Kim. So that's health. How about I think childcare would be a good place to go as we get down towards the end of this show here today. Hi. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Gail Brinston, isn't it?
Gail Brinston, yes.
Daybreak Childcare.
Daybreak Child
Child-
Family Center.
And Family Center, thank you. Childcare was the topic. I can't read my
Yes.
notes properly.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Okay, so I'm an early childhood educator and I've been in the field a long time. I'm not going to date myself, but I am a certified early childhood educator.
Yeah.
And I've also been involved both provincially and nationally with advocacy. Almost from the beginning. Early childhood educators here in Newfoundland have made some significant gains in the past few years in that the province has introduced a wage scale for certified early childhood educators. That, though, has its own drawbacks because it was put in place. There was a 3-year stipulation before it's going to be reviewed again next year. So it's a long time to wait. Some of us went way up on the pay scale, and for those who were at the lower end of the pay scale, it was wonderful. For those of us who were working perhaps in a unionized environment and we were already at the pay scale, it made no difference whatsoever.
Right.
So I'll always applaud the opportunity for those at the lower end to earn more, and I applaud the government for bringing it in place. It's a wonderful thing, but they really need to look at how it rolled out and what it meant to individual ECEs and with the different levels. So in terms of training, an early childhood educator here in Newfoundland can be from a trainee level to a level 4. And so a trainee level is the Association of Early Childhood Educators. They offer some training and then you get the designation of a trainee level. And I'd like to make the clarification that a trainee level is not the same as going to school and studying to be an early childhood educator. It's really hard if you work with children to have people alongside of you who have bare minimums. In my workplace, it's a kind of a diverse workplace. We have 5 programs and we come from a very strengths-based approach. Our focus is on early intervention and prevention. And we work with families who come from very complex challenges. And so we have different programs that support that. So children's program being one aspect of that.
Right.
All of our staff, and I'm happy to say, all of our staff are trained and qualified.
Right.
It's really hard to do this type of work if you don't have the training. A lot of our children, we listened on the floor yesterday. One of the focuses here at the convention has been around mental health. And there was a speaker who got up and talked about children in kindergarten. And they could identify males, 3 out of 10, who were showing early signs of mental health issues. Well, I said to my coworker, I said, we could actually do that with 2-year-olds that we've seen.
Right.
Because we have children who come from a very traumatizing background. And the signs are there then. That's why this early intervention is so important. In my workplace, we have many community partners. We partner with the Janeway, Child Development. There are different practitioners, OT, physio, speech and language, developmental pediatricians. We make referrals, and we actually work in-house. They actually come in-house and do some work with our children. Sometimes these children are waiting for 2 years to be seen at the Janeway.
Yeah.
So by
The
getting
wait
them in
times for these
early,
types of things.
absolutely.
But then if you have that, like you said, that early intervention, the early recognition of what is happening,
Absolutely.
then the care can be better for the child and outcomes are better.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
You know,
As
our-
opposed to waiting 2 years for the, and then what happens with that delay and what gets not taken care of, or like if the help is not there, like you said,
Yeah.
it can be life-changing early on.
yeah, well,
Right.
what happens
We've
is,
got
I mean,
about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Any final thought on it?
so I do have some final thoughts. So where do we need to go with the profession? And it is a profession. We do not babysit. I've never sat on a baby in my life.
No, and that's been the big discussion with ECs. It's a profession, right? It's not
a
babysitting,
profession.
it's a profession.
So there's a couple of things. I'm from a unionized environment, so we do have, you know, some of the benefits and have had over the years. A couple of years ago, government of Newfoundland brought in a healthcare package for ECEs, which is good. The one thing that most ECEs are lacking is a pension plan. And early into the election platforms, there was an opportunity. We did speak with Premier Wakeham, and he was seemed committed to looking at both the pension plans for early childhood educators. There's no sick leave involved in the OPG grant, which most centres are on. So you have people who are working with the sickest of the sick at most times.
We've got about 30 seconds left for you.
And so pension plans, sick leave, other types of leave, and wages.
Gail, thank you for this. And
Thank
you
you.
for making those points. And 30 seconds left for President McCormick. Final thoughts for today as we're about to go.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Adam. It's we're all part of a big family in the labor movement. We're always looking to grow our family. So, a message to people who don't have a union card right now: talk to your coworkers, contact the Federation of Labor. We know that we can build a strong economy when people have, like I said, that union card. There's no shortage of issues that we're going to be taking on over the next few years, but we've got a very strong and powerful labor movement in Newfoundland and Labrador, probably one of the strongest in the country, and I'm very proud to lead this organization.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is it for today's show. Climate Week continues tomorrow. Guess what? Barns in Newfoundland and Labrador were not built for climate change. The heat, the humidity, plus there's a bunch of other things farmers are having to adapt to when it comes to climate change. We'll be talking about that tomorrow on the show. Don't miss it.